Welcome to a very special edition of the Heron Outlet. We are very honored to have a very special guest with us here, the head coach of Fort Lauderdale CF, Darren Powell. Darren, first off, welcome to the Heron Outlet. Congratulations on, this battle that you guys are having. It is a fun one to watch. We try to talk about it a lot on the podcast every single week. So I want to just jump right in immediately and talk about this feeling, what you guys have gone through this season, what these last couple of games are going to be like for you guys, because this is exhilarating. There was a moment where I think there was something like, 8 teams that were within one game of you guys. So how fun has this been for you?
Well, first and foremost, just thank you for having me, and we obviously appreciate all the support and you guys following us throughout the season. But we look at it as a challenge. I think that's how we view everything going into each week throughout the season. It's a challenge to make sure we prepare the players the best we can, and we look at it through the lens of their individual development, what's their best for their individual development, and then how does that help the collective of the group. So it's been a really fun challenge, and I think hats off to all the players. Every day they come in and they try to be the best version of themselves on the training ground, and try and take advantage of the opportunities that they have, and then the staff in turn as well. I think the professionalism of the staff and the dedication of the staff, Martin Patterson, Chris Baracus, Steven Sanchez, and Carlos have all played their role really well, and I think that's what helps establish a good culture and a good environment for development.
I wanted to ask you about player development, because you were the director of player development, an assistant last year, and took over this year from Jason Christ. What has that been like? Phil Neville has talked a lot about wanting to see not just one, not just two, but maybe multiple guys come up to the first team next year. And what is that pressure like for you? What do you feel like in terms of developing these players and these guys that you want to see play MLS minutes come next year?
No, I think, when you're in development and when you're coaching as part of a pathway from the academy all the way through to the first team, and obviously Jason's been heavily involved with that. Phil's set the standard as a gold standard that, this is what he wants to see. This is what the club ownership wants. So it wants to be a part of Inter Miami's DNA. And I think, as a coach in that kind of, pathway, so to speak, that's what you want to hear. You want to know that there is a pathway for young players. It's real. And it is tangible for these players to get there. And I think what Phil's brought, this year to the group and is opportunities for players to train within the first team environment. And in turn, we've had academy players that have come through our academy system, then coming to Fort Lauderdale. And that's what you want as a whole club. It's that integration all the way through the first team. So, you hear the numbers and those numbers are exciting, but also a challenge. It makes it very competitive for all the players. They know each day they have an opportunity to impress the staff with their performances. So, it's tangible and you can see it and it's real. And players have had that opportunity. And you've seen, obviously, 3 homegrown players that have come through the academy in Fort Lauderdale last year, with Ian Frey, with Edison Ascona and Felipe Valencia. So it's there. And it doesn't matter if you're a 14-year-old player in the academy, you have opportunities in this club, and that's what's exciting. I think it's not just exciting for myself as a coach and being a part of development, it's exciting for all the academy staff as well, because they see their work as real and there's progression. So, I think we're all looking forward to the day where several players that have come through the system then step out, because once you get the contract, that's only the next step. The step after that is, can you get onto the field? Then can you establish yourself in the team? So you're always pushing that bar with players. And when you can see those steps happening for young players, and you'll see those over time, it takes time because we're still a very young club, but it's important that you keep pushing those standards every day in training, whichever level you're coaching at. We're pushing those standards, driving those standards home, creating a good culture within the club, and the players then can see there is progression by their performance. And it's not only performance on the field, it's how they can act and interact off the field we find very important here as well.
Hi, Darren. My name is Alex WINDLEY. Speaking of those 6 players, I want to touch on a couple. Ameba Mambika, he's been talked about a lot. He's a big guy. He likes playing out with his feet and whatnot. And when I'm watching Fort Lauderdale, I have the tendency, he has a tendency to, play the ball. He's good with his feet. So I was wondering about his development and how you see him and how it's gone so far.
Yeah, no, I think before we just get in specifically to MA, I think it's important, for the progression for all these players. So I know the gaffer Phil has spoke about 9 and 10 players in regular training, but it's also every day there's some players that may be a little bit younger right now that are not in that 9 and 10 but can be. There's players that may currently not establish themselves into that 9 and 10 but can do. So it's a constant process, and play in football and soccer, 2 weeks is a long time, so things change. So it's very important that these players continue to keep pushing themselves and see that pathway. And currently 9 or 10 have been identified as is public knowledge, but the layer below is just bubbling, and then who's next? Who's going to be that next guy? And some of the reasons may be age, maybe experience, and so on and so forth. But Amaze come in. Obviously, he was a draft pick, a first-round draft pick for us last year. As a defensive player. His physical presence is easily noticeable. That's what draws you to him first and foremost, and you can see that within the games. But there's so much more to Amaze's game, which is what's exciting. And he's grown over the course of the year. We watched a lot of video of him, prior to the draft. And you can see the growth, you can see the potential in the May. And I still think that there's lots more for him to grow within the game, but he's doing so many things really, really well. So as you say, look, he's comfortable with the ball. And so when you have a profile of a player, he's 6'6", and he's very agile as well in terms of on the bigger distances. So now we want him to be brave with his play, and he's starting to become more and more brave with his play, and he's getting better. Now it becomes the quality of those passes and the quality of those choices. That's kind of his next level and next progression, and he's working at that really hard. But one thing he has grown really well is just tactical decisions and defensive positioning, and he's done that really well over the last 6 months, and he continues to grow and continue to work at that side of his game. So yes, and he's a pleasure to coach. He's a really good boy. He listens. He wants to do video work and study the game, study who he's playing. So there's a lot of room for growth with a May. But what we've seen since he's been here is how he's progressed month on month. To improve his game and then improve his readiness for the MLS.
I wanted to, since we're talking individual players, Harvey Neville has been a very standout guy for you guys this year that really, I don't think a lot of us expected that to come. And now Romeo Beckham also as a winger has had his spurts recently and will probably hope to look for that consistency. But how difficult is that, knowing that the coach of the first team is the father of this player that is starting to be better, that a legend, an England legend, is also two of them, is also your winger? How difficult is that, knowing that it can be difficult to say, wow, this is merit-based, because they have played really well, and yet from the outside they go, oh no, it's just because of who your dad is?
I mean, first and foremost, look, I kind of grew up watching, I was, same sort of age, but growing up watching, David and Phil play, and exceptional players. Like top of the trade, and their resumes as players are outstanding, and it's just, it's an honor to obviously be working alongside them. But when you look at the boys, we treat them as players. I don't look at it as Phil Neville's son or David Beckham's son. I treat them as footballers. And then you want to give them the feedback, and you want to make sure that they continue to grow. And I think first and foremost, it talks about the character of the boys in Harvey and Romeo, that they want to listen, they want to get better, they want to improve. And so for a coach, from my standpoint, that's easy. You want players that want to come in the building every day and want to get better at their trade. And so then you can give them, pointers. And again, obviously Harvey's been here, all season pretty much, from when he arrived in April, and he applies himself every day, and he works extremely hard, and he's a quality footballer. I mean, he's been schooled, he's in a good place. He can play a couple of different positions, and he has a good comfort level, both tactically and technically in all those positions. But again, he's still a young boy and wants to get better. And I think first and foremost, that's what's important about both those two young men. They both want to get better every day. And the challenge for the coaches is to try and improve them a little bit each day, so they can continue to progress through the system.
Darren, how are you? Oh, go ahead, Alex.
Real quick question about George Acosta. I know he's coming off that knee injury from 2020, but this year he's been absolutely phenomenal for Fort Lauderdale. And I just wanted to ask, how's his development going? He has 7 assists on the season. Absolutely brilliant player for you guys. So I was wondering on how's his recovery going, and how's his development as a player?
Yeah, I think obviously first and foremost, George is coming from an ACL. He's a creative player. He's an exciting player to watch. But when you're recovering from an ACL injury, it just takes time. You have to learn how to manage your knee. It feels slightly different, speaking a little bit from experience. But bottom line, he's learned how to do that. He prepares himself every day. He's in early and preparing himself so he can get onto the training ground and do what's required. Georgie on the ball has been really good. I think he's one of the leading players within the league that for chances created. He's one of the leaders for assists as well. So that's really good. But what I was really pleased in the last game against Greenville was his positional sense defensively for the team as well was the best he's had all year. So whenever you want to progress players, you've got to be able to do it both sides of the ball. And I think that's what Georgie's now starting to really evolve as a player and do. And now he's just got to continue to keep pushing. Keep pushing and showing both sides of the ball and his appetite for doing it and enjoying it. And he'll continue to progress within his career. But again, he's been one of the more exciting players in chances created this year, and that's what he enjoys to do. And I certainly enjoy watching the chances created from the sideline as well.
Darren, how are you? It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for doing this. My name is Austin, and something that's really always intrigued me watching American soccer the last couple of years is these lower level sides, second division and third division, where you have affiliate teams like Fort Lauderdale CF, but you also have teams that are them in themselves, and let's say the Greenville Triumphs. And for you guys, part of the goal is not only to be competitive, but it's also to have your players become better and progress them, while Greenville, is a team where they need to compete for titles. How do you as a manager kind of find that balance between your young players to send them up to the first team, as well as be competitive in the league and also compete for titles like you guys are doing, trying to push for the playoffs now? How do you find that balance, and does it, evolve in your everyday tactics and decisions when it comes to who's in the starting lineup or how you try to put them out on the pitch?
I think, it's a great question, and I feel very fortunate to have the role that I do with Inter Miami, but my previous role was with San Antonio. So I was on the other side of that trying to win. And, we had an academy there as well, where we tried to bring up and develop young players, and we've had some that have done really well. And I think in 2019, we had the Young Player of the Year within the USL Championship level. So, from different experiences that you have, you learn and learn how you want to manage. Now, being part of an integrated club, we meet as a staff, the first team staff, Phil, Anthony Pulis, Jason Christ, Mark Mason, myself, and Pato at the start of the week, Martin Patterson at the start of the week, and we look at the players and who's going to be available, who's going to be, with the first team, how we want to set the week up in terms of players available. And then our daily approach is always to make the individuals better, and, you know, with the collective in mind. So it's slightly different than if I was at, say, San Antonio, where, look, we're trying to beat, we're trying to beat Sacramento this weekend. So it's a slightly different approach. Now, the one thing that we have each day is, you know, in the culture that we created, is we want to make sure that, you know, we have some non-negotiables where we want intensity every day. Okay, we have to have intensity in what we do, because if you don't have intensity, you can't get better and your teammate can't get better. So we want to have that intensity, because when you go into that first team environment, it's intense. You know, that's where the spotlight is on. It's intense. So we want to prepare the players. So that intensity is very, very important. You know, the second thing, you know, we want them to be competitive. You know, it's very important to be competitive. So on a game day, you have to be competitive. There will be a winner and loser on a Saturday night in Greenville, or a Friday night in Greenville, or a Wednesday night in Omaha. You have a winner, and we want to be that team that wins. So you have to be competitive. So if you're showing intensity and we're competitive in what we do, that's very important. Then the last thing we have each day is we tell the players we want second. I can refer to it as a second action. So the play's never over until that ball goes either in the goal or out of play. It's never over. We get back into our shape. We get organized. Second action. If we give the ball away, we want you brave. You're going to give passes away. It's going to happen, but we want that response immediately. And that's the behaviors and actions we want from the players every single day. So in turn, that then is reflective on a game day. And then that's what we want to be competitive. And that's how we, you know, we set ourselves up. And if all the players have that, it doesn't matter. We played the Philadelphia Union with guys 2 weekends ago, with guys that hadn't maybe played as many USL minutes as much as they wanted. And those guys gave an absolute fantastic account of themselves that day. And we managed to beat Philly Union 2, so to speak, in that game with some very young players out there. So it's important that you are ready. Whenever that opportunity comes, we want the players ready. Then it goes back from what we do on the training ground and having those non-negotiables each day. As the roster changes, but those don't. So they're standard, and that's what we want to see from the players. So that, I think, helps the players prepare the best they can as an individual and as a group come game day.
I wanted to touch off of that because the first team has had a lot of injury issues, and there was the desire to have some call-ups, and there seemed to be some sort of misunderstanding with MLS. You know, rules can get confusing sometimes. If you could just touch on what happened there, and also how difficult it was for Fort Lauderdale then, for your squad, to still prepare for game day and deal with everything that's happened and what's going to go for the rest of the season as you make your own playoff push. Because I feel like this club has made it very clear that this not even, you know, Fort Lauderdale, but also the academy wants this to be a progress, wants this to be a growth, and wants to be local. And I think that that's wonderful. But how does it affect your day-to-day training for your own team?
No, I think, look, again, you know, I'm very fortunate and had some really good experiences over the years. You know, in any club, the first team's a priority. So everything stems to the first team. Our job is to serve the first team. So for us, it's very important. My job becomes very easy. You know, we serve the first team, so the requirements of what they need, that's there for them. And the communication's fantastic. And so each day we just go into, you know, like I said earlier, it's a challenge. We make sure we challenge the players every day. So our role in that process is very simple and straightforward. We serve the first team and we challenge the players. And then obviously, then in turn, the almost like the vacuum, if you like, is then obviously now can we get academy players? And now Javi Morales is doing a great job with the U17s, and they're training in the morning. I think what you'll find is coming in January, there'll be even more players coming up that ladder. As you know, the difficult thing is the academy season is different to the MLS and USL season, so it's just aligning those cycles. So as you know, the academy team is winding down, then obviously the USL is in full flow, and vice versa. So I think, you know, that's the piece that is good for the club, that, you know, everybody's on board, everybody's integrated. The 17s are now training in the morning, so we can have that vacuum into full effect. And it's starting, you know, and that's starting to really help the players and help players grow. And you know, that's, for me, is exciting. And I think that's, it should be for the players as well. And, you know, for us, like I said, the training then becomes the non-negotiables we've already spoke about. And then, you know, each day, can we make the individuals better? Can we make the collective better? So when we go into to play, as many players are ready to go and impact that game. And as I said, you know, playing Philadelphia Union 2, that's what we were most proud about, is how many all those players were ready, and there's no hesitation. It's next man up sort of mentality. When it's your turn, go and do the best you can, and you should be ready.
I have something really quick here too. I wanted to ask, I mean, if going back to one of the earlier topics, losing players to the first team, let's say in the next couple of years, and you talked about the U17s or the U14s and how many of those guys are going to come up. How do you prepare some of those young guys like you have now, the Noah Allens and the younger guys? How do you prepare them mentally and also physically, tactically, on a technical standpoint, to come up and play third division minutes and then later on in their careers first division minutes?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one that continues to evolve. I mean, you can see the board behind me, and that's got names from the U12s, I think, over here, you know, all the way
I noticed earlier.
So
We're trying to find what the names are out there.
Yeah, they're very small. I mean, Evan, bless him, the admin made them really small, so he challenges my eyesight every day as well with the labels. But no, they're color coded for the ages. And so, you know, Craig, Darren Powell is now in as the academy director, and we work very closely. And we're looking at, you always look at the top talents that are coming through, and then it's just, you know, my big thing with any player, any young player, you want to make sure they're ready. Sometimes you don't know they're ready until you try, so you try. But it's important that they are ready. So, you know, the game model, you know, with the academy and the USL is very linked together, and so the players understand, you know, and that's what we're creating. That's the club culture that we've created over the course of the last, you know, 3 years, and it's evolving. And now you're starting to see just a taste of it. I think in 2 years it's going to be even better as it matures. And, you know, the people in place are doing a really good job and a really positive job with the players. And, you know, your familiarity with the players is important. And so for my role, is familiarity with some of the U14s. Okay, he's on a good path, and how we challenge him. How can we make him better? Do we play him up? Okay, you know, he may be a little bit smaller and he may not be physically ready to play up yet. So, okay, how do we challenge him? What are we doing to challenge the player? So that's kind of the role that we have and we see, and the coaches are very open within the academy and listening to Craig and taking those ideas on board. And there is a process in place. And so now you can see that whole integration from the first team all the way through the academy. And my role really is that bridge in between, and, you know, seeing the players and recommending players and then giving them, providing opportunities. And then the coach's job within the academy is making them ready for that next step, That's the most important thing.
Hi, Darren. Okay, so are there any specific prospects that you would like us to keep an eye on? I know there's the Harden brothers, there's Noah Allen, like Austin said. There's a lot of great young talent on this Fort Lauderdale team. So are there any specific players that we should look out for next season that will make the jump?
No, I think you'll see progression in a lot of the players you just mentioned, as well as like Felipe Valencia. But it's always very difficult just to say, hey, this player, because that puts a lot of pressure onto that individual. So, you know, I think there's a lot of young players in this club that have a lot of good potential that, you know, hopefully can navigate themselves through the journey of being an academy player to a USL player, you know, and then into to the first team player. And I think it's very exciting to be a part of that journey. And you guys will see, and as players start to evolve, you'll see their talents stand out, and you'll see them see kind of their individual journeys. And what's always interesting for young players, no journey is the same. They're all different. And what young players have to understand is they own that journey. They own it. They own it with how they approach their training, how they approach the games, but they own that journey, and that's very, very important. It's not, and it's not the same. Every player is going to be slightly different, and what they have to focus on is not the outcome, but that whole process. What's the process? How can I get better today? How am I going to improve? And you tell the players, ask yourself the question: what did I do well today? How can I, what did I not do as well? And how do I improve tomorrow? And that's the process. And that's why, you don't want to single out individuals because it puts a lot of pressure on them, and they're still young players. But, you see the guys that are progressing, the guys that are getting minutes. And there's a layer of players just below there that next year we'll get those minutes. So it's exciting, and I think for all the fans it's exciting out there. The process is in place and evolving, and players will get opportunities, and the club it's very integrated from top to bottom, which I think is exciting for the staff and for players and families that are out there in South Florida.
Darren, I thank you so much for your time. I wanted to close with just this. You guys have played such an attractive style of football for people that haven't gotten to see you this year. One of the highest scoring teams in the league. You guys really bang out goals. We follow it every single week here at the Heron Outlet. We talk about it on the podcast all the time, but for people that don't subscribe to ESPN Plus, don't get to see your games, what is it about your style of play that has found that offense, that exciting 3-2 games that keep somehow managing to happen?
I wish there were 3-0. Keep me calm there. You can see the blood pressure comes up. No. I mean, look, with young players, I think what you find is they constantly trying to play in an identity with the ball, so what we want to do, and we have ideas and we work on that on the training field. And we want to emulate some of the things that the first team have done, and emulate things that we have within the academy. So we're in a unique position, and we work on that identity from day one, and I think that's important, and we talk about it. But we want to make sure we impose ourselves on the opponent, and we prefer to do that with the ball. In most of the games we're a little bit physically smaller, but we're quick technically, and we're quick physically as well. These guys can move. And so that's what makes it exciting. So we work on it, and I think one of my favorite goals personally was against the first game against Tucson, and we scored directly from the kickoff, and you saw a lot of examples of what we were trying to do within that goal, and the opponent didn't even kick the ball, so that's like the perfect kickoff, and I wish we could do that every week. But you can see that identity evolve. But my hat's off is to all the players and how hard they work each day. Everything we do in the training, there's purpose to it, and from an individual standpoint, and then obviously the collective, and these guys have really bought into that, and they come every day prepared to it, and the staff, as I said, from in particular, Chris, the goalkeeper coach, and Martin Patterson, the assistant coach, have really emphasized that and really stressed that each day. And I think the players enjoy it, because, with the ball, if we have it, we don't have to defend as much. And most players like to play with the ball. So it's something we really emphasize. And I think you saw on Friday night, the game where we're trying to build. And, we got into some good areas and didn't quite, execute the final ball or the final run or the final play, but the intent from the players is always there, and I think that's probably the best word, is intent. What we set each game out, and we're intentional in what we do, and that's and when it comes off, it's exciting, and I just love the attitude of the players and their desire to make it come off every single day, and that's hats off. I tip my hat to all the players for that.
And you might get a goal of the year nominee from George Acosta coming up. We'll see at the end of the year where that one ranks. Darren Powell, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So I was going to say, there's been several good goals. For me, it's a fantastic strike from Georgie, but I think even Georgie will say there's some of the goals where every player's touched the ball on the way to the final touch, and I like those goals as well. So,
Well,
hats off to all the players.
she is Alex Winley. He is Austin Robillard. I am Ian Hest, and he is the head coach of Fort Lauderdale CF, Darren Powell. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and all the best of luck the rest of the way.
Thank you guys for having me, and appreciate all the support. And we'll keep pushing everybody as hard as possible.